All right. All right, everybody, I'm going to give it about 3 more minutes and see if anybody else pops in before I get started. Okay, anybody else? Linda.
Yes.
You were one of our clients, right? Emerald Court
Yes.
in the house in Alabama,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I remember you.
Yes.
How's everything going?
Everything is good. Everything is good.
Good. I know that house in Alabama was beautiful, so
Yes, I love it. I love it. Still working on it.
it's always a work in progress. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. Well, I will see if anybody else is in the waiting room. And there's something here where I'm supposed to be able to optimize the audio so that it automatically will filter out some of that stuff. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. So everybody sees this getting your credit and check screen.
Yes.
This is going to be a quick kind of a tips and tricks and hacks and a little bit about what credit scores are so that the tips and tricks and hacks make sense. I have been a mortgage loan officer since 1999. So I'm going on 24 years of helping people with their credit. And I've learned quite a few things in that time. And so I just want to share some of that information with you. It's gotten a lot better since 1999 with the all these credit monitoring services and being able to check your score with your credit card and stuff like that. It's gotten a lot better. People are a lot more informed now, but there's still a few little things that I see often that I wanted to cover. So we'll get started. What is a credit score? I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can so that we can get to some Q&A. But if you have any questions, just either type them in the chat. I've got somebody monitoring that as well, or just shout it out if you have a question. Let's see. So your credit score is really let me go back to this one. Your credit score is really an algorithm that the credit bureaus, credit agencies use to figure out how likely you are to repay a debt. So this isn't exactly how it works, but it's a good way of explaining it. If you have a 780 credit score, you have roughly a 78% chance of paying back money that you borrow on time every month. That's how the creditor is going to look at it. Nobody really has 100% chance of paying it back because stuff happens. People lose jobs, things happen, illnesses, stuff like that. But the closer you get, I think 840, 850 is about where they max out, depending on which model you're using. So 780 is a 78% chance if I loan you money, you're going to pay it back. A 630 is a 63% chance that if I loan you money, you're going to pay it back on time every month. 420, 42% chance. So if you were loaning somebody $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, which of these categories are you going to loan that money to? Okay. You're more than likely going to loan it to the person with a 78% chance of paying it back. So that's kind of how this is all viewed. Reasons why good credit is important is because it's money in your pocket when you have good credit versus, a lot more money being taken out of your pocket. On a home loan, the difference just between 3.2 and 4.8, of course, we all know rates are higher than that right now, but you're looking at a $50,000 difference in the amount of interest you would pay on a $150,000 loan over 30 years. On a car, 41,000 versus 32,000. I mean, I don't want to pay $10,000 more for my car over 5 years. Sam is trying to get in. Admit. Thank you, Whitney. Portia. Sorry, it doesn't beep at me when someone wants to come in. So auto loans tell you the difference. Credit card rates. The delinquency rates go up on credit cards, which is why your interest rate goes up on credit cards. And even with homeowners insurance or car insurance, the ones that are older, have no tickets, no claims, etc. This is what this is based on. You're going to pay more for your car insurance or for your home insurance or for your life insurance in some cases if you have credit issues. Let's see if I can fix this. Oh, it's not going to let me. All righty. I got Portia in. Did Sam get in, Whitney? I don't see anybody in the waiting room. All right. So that's why it's important. There's only 5 parts really to a credit bureau or to a credit score. 5 factors that affect it: payment history, credit utilization, age of credit, a mixture of accounts, and credit activity. So it kind of summarizes it right here. 35% payment history, 30% the amount owed, 15% length of credit history, and 10% of the mix of your credit and if you have new credit. This is a lot of wording, but it explains why late payments are really bad news, because 35% of your score is tied to your payment history. How much you owe across all of your accounts versus the amount of available credit is what utilization is. And the easiest way to think of it is, what is your balance on your credit card versus your limit? If you have a $1,000 limit on your credit card and a $300 balance, you're using 30% of your available credit. If you owe $800 on a credit card with a $1,000 limit, you're at an 80% utilization, and your credit scores can actually go down even if you're making your payments on time because of that. So you want to keep your balances down. 15% comes from the length of your credit history. So if you pay on time for a long time, that helps your credit a lot. That's one of the reasons you don't want to close old accounts if they're good. 10% comes from the amount of revolving and installment debt that you have. So you want to make sure that you have a mix of those. I've had clients who have gotten a 40-point boost just from opening a small credit card when they didn't have a credit card before. And the reason for that is an algorithm is really just a big equation. And the way the math works, if any of you remember high school algebra, whenever you throw a 0 into the middle of that equation, it kind of jacks up your answers because anything multiplied by 0 is 0, divided by 0 is 0. So if you have 0 credit cards, then you throw a big 0 in the middle of that revolving credit equation, and it lowers your credit score. So as counterintuitive as it seems, having a credit card and using it responsibly boosts your credit score. 10% comes from recent credit activity, including hard inquiries like trying to open up a bunch of accounts. Every time you sign up for a Kohl's card to get 10% off, that's a hard credit hit. Every time you apply for a furniture loan or a car loan, or in most cases a mortgage loan, we've actually started doing soft inquiries in the beginning of loan processes to make sure that we're not hurting someone's credit if they need credit help. So be very careful who you give your social security number to. Again, this is just a breakdown of factors that affect your credit and the proportions of them. Make sure there's nobody else. Okay. This I thought was interesting. This is from 2021. It shows the average credit scores in the US. The dark blue is on the lower end, the dark brown is on the higher end, and it's interesting to see. But when you compare this graph to graphs that represent scores on standardized tests in schools, or to the level of people below the poverty line, it correlates pretty well. So those are two things that affect credit: the number of people in the area with below the poverty line, and education. So those are ways that, you know, we can work in these states, because I'm in one of them, to help people better their credit, is to teach a little bit more about it. So 35% is payment history. One late payment can cause as much as 180 point drop in your credit score. One of the things that I teach, especially younger people who are not used to using credit, is to open a credit card, a small one. Don't go crazy. Open a small credit card, and instead of having your Netflix or your Hulu or your Xbox account or whatever come out of your debit, with your debit card coming out of your checking account, bill it to the credit card, and then have the credit card automatically deduct the balance from your bank account every month. And what that does is it puts a middleman in there. And it's no different than if you were paying it from your debit card, except for the fact that you're building good credit every month. And the key is to set it up on automatic payments, so you don't ever have to think about it. You don't ever have to worry about it. And then you just tuck that credit card into your safety deposit box or in a file somewhere, and don't use it to run it up. And that will help increase your credit score over time, but it also increases it in the short term as well. One thing that I do personally is I have 3 credit cards, and I have them set up. The minimum payment automatically comes out of my bank account on the due date. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about them changing my due date, changing the statement closing date, any of that. Automatically comes out of my bank account. And then I pay extra whenever I want. If I've got charged something up and I want to pay extra, I just go online and I pay the extra. I don't have to worry about when, because I know the minimum payment's already been paid. So it's a good way to do it. Credit utilization. One of the interesting things about the US is everybody is overextended in living on credit. Very few people buy houses with cash or buy cars with cash. There's a percentage that do, but the majority don't. We pretty much all use credit cards. A lot of us have gotten a car loan in our life or something like that. Ironically, when I was talking about the credit utilization and using only a percentage of your limit, someone who owes $8,000 on a credit card with a $10,000 limit versus someone that owes $100 on a card with a $1,000 limit. You would think that the person that was less in debt, excuse me, let me back that up, I just reversed it. Someone who owes $800 on a card with a $1,000 limit is considered a higher credit risk than someone who owes $8,000 on a card with a $10,000 limit. That's what's counterintuitive. The person with more actual debt is the one who is considered a higher credit risk, a lower credit risk, excuse me. I'm going to get that straight one day. It's a long day today. The sum total of that is keep your balances low, because if you owe too much on your credit card, it makes your credit score go down. I jacked that all up. I'll get it right next time. Sorry, guys. Ask me about it in the chat on the Q&A. 165 points can be deducted from your score if you max out your credit cards. Lowering your credit utilization lets creditors know you can use credit responsibly without relying on it too much. When you max out your cards, it makes you look a little desperate, even if that's not the case. And that's why that is an important thing to think about. The other reason is if you max out your credit cards and then something happens, what are you going to do? You know, are you going to not be able to pay your car payment or your mortgage payment because you don't have room on your credit card? It's one of the reasons why that is a factor. Get your balance down below 30% of your credit limit and your score will increase a lot. It's one of the first things I tell people when I'm helping them build their credit. Age of accounts. You get about 80 points of your score from the age of your accounts. The longer you have your accounts, the more points you get. So if you have a credit card you've had since you were 18, don't close it. Just because it has a 27% interest rate, as long as you're not charging it up, that 20% interest rate doesn't matter. If it's a long-term account, it's helping you. So don't run up the balance. You know, use it to buy gas and then pay it off or something like that every once in a while. As long as a credit card is used once every 6 months, it keeps reporting to your credit as good payment history. Revolving and installment debts. This is the mix we were talking about. The difference between them: revolving, personal lines of credit, credit cards, business lines of credit. Installment credit, student loans, mortgages, personal loans. So the difference is really how they're paid. You need a mix of both types, because if you are missing revolving credit or missing installment loan debt, then it actually lowers your credit score, because they, again, throws a zero into the works of that equation. Credit activity, that's basically, are you credit seeking? How well are you managing your credit? Or how dependent are you? How many inquiries have you had? Have you gone out and tried to apply for 10 credit cards, or bought a house and a car and 2 credit cards in the same 2 months? That puts you in a lot of debt quickly, and that makes you a higher credit risk. So that's why this is important. There are some ways, tips and tricks and hacks to hack the system. Some of these are common sense, but common sense is sometimes a superpower. If you know anybody like that. And others are a little trickier. One of the major hacks that I tell people who have medical bills is don't let your medical bills go to collection. I'm a good example. I got sick a few years ago, and I had like a $8,000 bill to Tennessee Oncology, and I couldn't pay $8,000 right then and there. But what I did was I paid them $20 a month every month for like 5 years, and it never went to collection. I didn't have to pay that $8,000 all up front. I wasn't stressing because I had to pay them $20 a month. It wasn't that much. Even $5 a month on a medical bill will keep it from going into collection. So keep that in mind if you ever get one of those big medical bills. Major hack, this one seems like common sense, but paying your bills on time, very important. If you have a bill that's over 30 days late, it's going to affect your credit negatively. The credit cards, this is something that I see a lot of people doing. They will have a minimum monthly payment of $23 a month. And so you go, hey, I got some extra money this month. I'm going to pay it ahead 4 months or something like that. And you pay $100. And you're like, okay, I'm good for 4 months. No, that's not how it works. With credit cards, you don't really get to pay ahead. With credit cards, you have to make that minimum payment every month. So don't make that mistake of saying, I made a big payment, so I don't have to pay it for the next couple of months, because that will bite you in the rear end. I've seen it 100 times at least. People think that they can do that, and it just doesn't work that way. So make sure you make those payments. Another major hack I tell people, sign up for one of those services like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, one of those that tells you where your score is at, when it changes, if something new hits, because knowledge really is power in this case. I use Credit Karma. I started using it about 10 years ago, and I learned that Credit Karma actually will give you almost word for word the same advice that I have given people hundreds of times. It's eerie, actually, what they tell you to do. Now, Credit Karma does make money by referring you to loans and credit cards and stuff like that, so be aware of that. But it is a free service, and it does offer really good information. If you think about it, it makes sense. They're going to offer you good information because the people that are paying them want you to have good credit so you can get these loans and credit cards. And so it really is a very good resource. If I had thought about it 10 years ago, I would have invested in their stock or whatever. Another major hack. You are entitled to a copy of your credit report once a year with everything on it. You get it from annualcreditreport.com. It'll take you to each of the 3 bureaus and you can see exactly what's on there. Again, knowing what is on there is important because you can catch any errors. You can catch if your name is wrong, if your social is wrong, if somebody else is opened an account in your name, making sure everything is correct. Seeing if any public records have been filed, like tax liens or judgments or things like that. I had this happen to me. I had an address from New Orleans show up on my credit report. And I'm like, I've never lived in New Orleans. At the time, I had never been to New Orleans. So I knew that I didn't live. I knew that that was wrong. Turns out my student loan company at the time, for some reason, had decided to send my student loan statements to New Orleans. If I hadn't looked at my credit report and seen that, I wouldn't have known. And if they had tried to get a hold of me to tell me I was late on a payment or something like that, or I needed to change the address where I mailed my payment, I wouldn't have gotten it because they had me in New Orleans. Here is a hack for people that don't have a lot of credit. It's called piggybacking. And what piggybacking is if you are lacking credit or if you have some credit issues, or if you don't have a lot of credit, just time-wise, piggybacking is inheriting somebody else's credit history, meaning you get added to someone's account as an authorized user. If you have a friend, a family member, parent, whatever, who has a credit card that they've had for a long time and it doesn't have a big balance and they pay on it regularly, they can add you as an authorized user. Doesn't mean they have to actually give you the card to use, but you can, even if it's for a short time, inherit their credit history through that card, and it can raise your score 50, 100 points. I've seen in a few cases to be added to as an authorized user to somebody's good history credit card. That's one of the hacks. You can also hack the algorithm they use using bills that you're already paying: electric, phone, water, cable. If it is automatically deducted from your bank account every month, you can have that added to your credit report as positive credit history, positive payment history. And since payment history is that big 35% chunk of your score, that's why that helps. There are some services that you can use to add that. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. Rental Karma and Rent Reporter can add 2 years of rental history. If you've been in the same place and you paid your rent on time every month, you can go there and have them add your credit history or your rental history to your credit report. There are paid services that will report to all 3 bureaus, pay your, whether it's your Netflix, your storage, your insurance, whatever it is, anything that you pay regularly through your bank account can be added to build credit on your report. There is a free one called Experian Boost that will connect automatically through online banking to your bank account, which sounds scary, but I've actually used this and I can tell you it's legit. Experian will look through your bank account and see what bills you pay regularly and say, hey, do you want to add these? And you say, yes, I want to add this one, I want to add this one, I don't want to add that one, whatever. And it will pop up on your credit report. Now, it's not a debt, so you don't have to worry about it in that way. And it's not like go to collection or anything like that from doing this, but it will improve that 35% payment history category and boost your credit. I used this, so it actually took my score up about 40 points when I added Experian Boost, but it only affects your Experian score. So there are, for people that don't have a lot of credit or who are rebuilding credit, there is a service called Kickoff. They have a credit builder loan and a revolving credit account. They report to specific bureaus. Again, this is kind of like a paid service, but it is relatively inexpensive. I'm not going to tell you to get into debt to fix your credit. That's kind of silly, but some of these services really do help if you have, hesitation about navigating these kind of things by yourself. 6 best ways to keep your credit scores high: pay your bills on time, monitor your credit, make sure that you don't run up the balances on your credit cards, keep your balances low if you can, keep your old credit cards open, limit opening new accounts. And here's a big one. I see this so many times and it's heartbreaking. Think twice about co-signing for someone. Or if you're going to co-sign for someone, a friend, family member, child, whatever, if you're going to co-sign for them, make sure that you know when they've made that payment every month. Because if they don't make it, you get hit for it. So make sure you're very careful who you co-sign for. One utilization hack you can use is, if you think that you would qualify for it, request a credit limit increase on your card. And you can go from, having a 50% credit utilization rate to a 20% credit utilization rate if your card increases your limit. And if you paid them on time, they want to increase your limit, because that means you spend more, which means they make more in interest. So you can hack them by not, using it all, but that's one way to lower your utilization. A lot of people will turn first to disputing stuff on their credit report. And disputes are a very good tool, but you don't want to start there. A lot of people just start there and say, I'm disputing everything bad on my credit report. And that can actually come back and bite you. Don't dispute things that are accurately reported unless they are over 7 years old. So, for example, in 2010, you had a medical bill go into collection. Well, it's 2023 now. That medical bill is over 7 years old, which is basically the statute of limitations from when it went bad. 7 years from when it went bad is the statute of limitations. But these debt buyers and credit and collection agencies will re-report it and buy old debt and try to re-age things illegally. If you can prove that that medical bill was from 2010 and not from 2021, then dispute it. But if it is an accurately reported collection account or an accurately reported late payment, you're probably not going to win the dispute. Most of these dispute systems are automated now, and there's a hack I didn't put in here for getting your dispute looked at by a person instead of just a computer, but I will tell you about it. Print your letters in purple ink. Sounds crazy, but the computers can't read purple ink, so they have to refer it to a person. It will take longer because a human has to review it. However, if your dispute is something significant and you know that you're in the right, you know that this shouldn't be reported, the best way to do it is to have a human look at it, because the computer is just going to check a few records and use artificial intelligence to decide whether your dispute is valid or not. And sometimes you have to dispute things a couple of times to get them to work. But purple ink, it's a little known secret of getting credit disputes looked at by a human. If you can document something or know that it's misreported information, dispute it. That's fine. But don't just don't go off and willy-nilly dispute everything bad on your credit, even if you know it's accurate, because it will hurt you. There are steps to filing a dispute: writing the letters, making sure that you provide each item's information, copies of bills or canceled checks, things like that, to help you with your dispute. That's going to make it more likely that it's going to get looked at, obviously, and more likely that you're going to win your argument. If collection agents are calling you, there's this phrase that will get you away, get them out of your hair. And if it doesn't, then I believe it's $5,000 per instance that they can be charged for violating it. If they call you and they are telling you they're with a debt collection agency, you can say, please cease and desist all calls and contact with me immediately. And they are required per the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to stop calling you. Another thing that you can use is what's called a debt validation letter. It's not a dispute letter. You get a collection notice in the mail, you can turn around within a certain period of time and say, I want you to validate the debt. I'm not disputing it, but I want you to validate that you are authorized to collect on it instead of Charter Communications or whoever it was, that I owe the money, and when the debt was originally, incurred. And there's a bunch of information. You can Google debt validation letter. There's a bunch of information that has to be on there, but they have to stop trying to collect it until they provide you with that information. If they can't provide you with the information required, then they have to take it off your credit report. Collection agency hacks. Most collection agencies buy debts from creditors for pennies on the dollar. So they have an incentive to settle with you. If a debt was $5,000 and Fox Collection buys that debt from whoever, then the chances are they probably bought it for $1,500, which means if you give them $2,000 on a $5,000 debt, then they're pocketing $500. So they're willing to settle usually for about 45% of the reported balance. That's the average. So offering to settle for less than the available balance, or less than the balance. There are a couple of services that will do this for you. Some of them are $5 a month. Some of them are $15 a month. They have different service levels. Solo Suit and Credit Versio will do this. If you don't want to deal with the creditors directly, you have a little money that you can afford to do this. It's not a really long-term thing. So, 6 months at $5 a month is $60. And if that gets a $5,000 collection off of your account, it's worth it. But it's something to look into. I'm not saying it's great for everybody. I'm not advocating or endorsing any of these, but they are services that are available. Something most people don't know. Do not pay collections off that are over 2 years old unless they are reporting to the credit bureau in the past 12 months. And even then, if it's over 2 years old, you want to try to get them to delete the account if you can, rather than just show it as paid, because when you show it as paid, it makes it a current event. Instead of something that was 5 years ago, it now looks like it's something recent, and that can negatively affect your credit score. Paying collections off in the first 2 years from the time it's reported will increase your credit score. But the further back it gets, the less you want to worry about paying it unless they agree to completely delete the account from your credit. A lot of them will say, oh, we can't do that. They can. They're the ones reporting it. They can delete it if they want to. But you have to, use whatever leverage you can to settle the debt and ask them for a deletion letter. And usually I've told people in the past, I was like, look, you call them and you say, look, I got a little bit of extra money. I'm going to pay the collections that are going to work with me the best. So, if you want me to pay you instead of somebody else, you're going to have to settle with me and give me a letter of deletion. Get that in writing that you're going to get that. If you're going to delete it from my credit report completely, I'm more likely going to pay you than pay somebody else. A lot of them will work with you because that's how they make their money. Don't allow balances to go over 30% of the limit. I know I'm beating that horse. Do not close credit card accounts when you pay them off, but keep an eye out for annual fees. Closing your credit card account reduces your available credit. But do be aware if there are any annual fees on your credit card so that you don't end up with late payments from an annual fee. If you have bad credit right now and you need to build it, a secured credit card is a good way to do that. A secured credit card is a lot like going to Walgreens and getting one of those Visa cards. It only is worth the amount that you put down on it. So a secured credit card is, I'm giving the credit card company $500 so that I can get a $500 credit limit on this card, which will allow me to do anything that, requires Visa or MasterCard or whatever. They typically will have an annual fee. They typically have high interest rates. They're charging you interest on your own money. You still have to make payments on them. Just because it's your money doesn't mean you don't have to make payments on it. But it does rebuild credit history. And there are some of those secured cards that don't even require a credit check to give them to you. So you want to make sure that if you're getting a secured card, that you are going to make the payments on it every month, and that they report to the credit bureaus, and that's how you rebuild credit. Also, a lot of times you'll get these balance transfer letters. Rather than opening up new accounts left and right to transfer your balance, you can always ask your current credit card company to match the terms. Hey, I'm going to transfer my $10,000 balance to Visa instead of MasterCard because they're going to give me 0% APR for 24 months. Well, your current credit card company may agree to match those terms or reduce your overall interest rate just to keep your business. So that's something worth asking. Making a plan is important. This is actually a snip of a form that I use all the time for people when I'm helping them improve their credit. And I check off what is going to be, what do they need to do. And these are the most important things: reducing credit card balances, opening a secured credit card if they need to build some credit history, pay off all collections reported within the last 24 months, except for medical collections and charge-off accounts. If there are any judgments reported where somebody's taken you to small claims court, that can be a big hit on your credit. So you want to pay that off and provide proof of release if you can to get that off your credit. I actually had a judgment on my credit for a while for like $340 for HOA fines. The HOA, I had a house, I moved, I rented the house out. The people that lived there, they left pumpkins rotting on their porch after Halloween. They got fined, but the HOA fine went to me as the homeowner. I didn't know about it. I had moved. They were sending notices to the house. I hadn't told my HOA that I was moving. They took me to court and won a judgment for $340. So I had to go and pay that judgment just to get it off my credit. Even though I didn't know about it, but it was hurting my credit. My scores went up about 50 points when I paid that. If you have past due child support, they are reporting child support to credit agencies now, and that can cause a problem. The most recent 12 to 24 months is the most important. Credit is a snapshot of your current credit profile. It is a moment in time. That's why credit scores change, because your credit changes, your balance changes on your credit card. Things do change. The longer you pay on a card, the more your credit's going to go up as long as you're paying it right. So make sure that the most recent 12 to 24 months is good. So from here on out, no late payments, don't run after credit cards, all that kind of stuff. But when we're looking at how we're going to treat someone as far as their credit is concerned, that's the most important part. If you can document rental payments for 12 months, get that put on your credit. It's going to help you. And sign up for Credit Karma or Credit Sesame or any of those. That is free, helpful, excellent advice. So I am opening this up for Q&A. I try to keep it around 30 minutes and then do a Q&A. So if you want to, you can either unmute yourself and shout out a question or type it in the chat, and either Whitney or I will do our best to answer it. So anybody got questions? Specific situations? You can send it just to me if you want to in the chat. Nobody? Won't let her in.
Okay, this is Linda.
Yes, ma'am.
Will this slideshow be available to review later on, or is it just for now?
I am going to, if you want, I'm going to email, if you put your email in on Eventbrite, I'm going to email it to everybody that is listed there.
Okay.
So if I have your, as long as your email's in there, I can do that. And you have my email, Linda. So if you want a copy of that or any of the other stuff that I've
Okay.
got on that, I can send it to you as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody had any issues that, dealing with creditors or situations that they didn't, or that they're having or had in the past that they wanted some advice or have questions about? Because trust me, I've seen it all. 23 years of doing this, I have seen it all. Actually, I'm going to say that, and then somebody's going to throw something at me tomorrow that's crazy. All right. Well, I'm going to type my email up in here. Well, actually, it's down there on the screen. That's my email, kmatties@vandykemortgage.com. If you want a one-on-one consultation, or if you have a specific question, feel free to email me there. My cell phone, 931-980-9764. We're going to do this. We're going to modify it a little bit and do it maybe once a quarter. So if you see it pop up on my Facebook page or whatever, just you can sign up or tell friends and family if you think they are going to benefit from it. And yeah, I will send that out. So I guess that's good night if nobody's got anything. Oh, good. Hopefully you got some tips, tricks, and hacks out of it. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good night.
Night.
Night.